What's up, bros, and welcome to another Brograph Broadcast. I am Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And with us today in the studio as a guest is my former business partner, Mike Yarbrough.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello, Mike.
This is the first time y'all have met. Yep.
Technically, we're not really meeting.
Yeah.
I can see his face just a little bit on the tiny little Skype screen.
And that's it.
And it's covered up by a
That's
microphone.
kind of weird. Like, y'all haven't met before, and we've both been business partners, so this is interesting.
Yep. We had a good discussion about 10 Cloverfield Lane and Star Wars.
We did.
But that's apparently all I know about you, is that you've seen 10 Cloverfield Lane and you've seen Star Wars. Oh, and you live in a house.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So, happy Easter, everybody. This is our Easter episode, by the way. This is when we celebrate the return of Jesus, who turned bunnies into chocolate. And this show, Brograph.
I'm shaking my head right now.
This show, Brograph podcast, is actually a supplement to the website Brograph.com, which is an online tutorial resource for learning Cinema 4D, After Effects, motion graphic stuff, learning about the business as well, as far as being a contractor or having your own business, kind of well-rounded in that aspect. And so what we do is we go into depth in the podcast and we talk about things that maybe you wouldn't be looking for when you see a tutorial, maybe stuff that you'd want to listen to while you're driving in the car or working on projects and whatnot. So what we're going to do this week, though, is we're going to continue our discussion on creativity. We're going to talk with Mike as well about managing a team and what he does with his company that he works for. And then we've got some follow-up and all that kind of stuff we're going to do too. So it should be a good show.
Sweet. Let's do this.
So real quick, just two quick things for the this week update. Number one is that After Effects did an update this week, which fixes the real-time preview problem in the newest version of OS X.
What do you mean the real-time preview
Weren't you
problem?
saying you had a problem with real-time preview?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I had updated it just previously or whether this was in there, but I did notice a new click button or a checkbox or something that says cache before playing, which I thought was awesome. You know, it's kind of like it's going back to the original caching version of it. I really like that.
Which is good.
So, yeah, totally. I can finally actually play my stuff in real time.
That's why I wasn't having the problem and other people were asking me why they were having the problem, is because I haven't updated to the newest version of OS X.
Oh.
So that's what
funny.
it was, apparently. And also, an update on the NAB thing and the limo. We did get an actual...
You're so funny with the limo. I just think it's hilarious that we're talking about the limo. We haven't even booked a limo, and we're just like, yeah, everyone come hang out with us in the limo.
We'll book it. It's not like it's not going to be booked.
This is the thing. This is like our thing. This is like the limo
We're working out the date. And so...
We're thinking probably Wednesday.
Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday, so we've got some people on board already. We were talking, of course, last week about EJ Hefeweizen in the limo, and he has accepted our offer to join us, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got one or two listeners, I think, who are also on board, so it should be a fun night. Mike, I wish you could come.
Where are you guys going in this limo?
Everywhere. Just gonna drive around. We're gonna
drop off EJ
at a brewery.
Man,
what?
I had a good name. And it
what
totally
was
just
it?
went away. Oh, EJ Heineken.
EJ Heineken. Well, he actually on Twitter he was like,
really
he's like,
bad.
just go with Hans and Franz. He's like, at least you didn't use Haas and Farts. But we're just, like last year, we just picked people up. We went around in the limo just from hotel to hotel. We picked people up. We had a bunch of beer in there.
And we ended up at a restaurant to eat.
Sinatra's.
I don't know if we'll do that this
expensive.
time because that place was really expensive. It was like, I mean, I don't drink, but a friend of mine got a glass of wine and it was $26. It's like,
yeah.
You could buy like 8 bottles of wine at a Trader Joe's
buy
for
a
that.
lot of Keystones for sure.
You guys should go out to the desert and do like a long exposure group photo or something.
That'd be cool.
Or bury a dead body.
Well, we're gonna.
One of us in the limo is gonna get murdered. and then we're going to drive out to the desert and bury your body.
Wow. That took a left turn. That escalated quickly.
I really hope that doesn't happen because people are going to come after me.
Yeah, we'll get into some sort of trouble. I don't know. We'll just run around. We'll beat up some people and yell World Star Hip Hop, and then we'll go home and pretend like none of it ever happened. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's going to happen. So
yeah, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right?
So, including murder. So if you're a listener and you want to meet up with us and you haven't contacted us yet, just let us know. We're going to meet up. We're going to have some drinks and whatnot, and it should be fun. So
yeah, it's going to be.
But that's all I have.
Hopefully.
I mean, I don't know if you have anything else from this week, but
nope, that's the show. It was really good. I think it's probably the best one we've had so far. Good. All right. So hit us up on social networks.
So to get to the actual meat of the show today, because we're going to try and keep it quick. I know Mike's got to head back to L.A. And Mike, we were talking about creativity last week.
Okay.
And so I guess we'll give a little bit of your background. We'll kind of skip around here. So you work for a company.
Right.
Which is... You don't have to say their name if you don't want to get too far into that.
Well, right now I'm the head of marketing, the creative director for it's a medium to large size home furnishings company. And so, we do all of our advertising, all of our creative in-house, all of our product photography. We host our website. Do you need any
3D room scenes done?
We were talking about that today, actually.
Yeah.
You know how many people there are out there that do some version of that? I mean, like we're kind of a large company, and so I get hit up by people all the time, and a lot of it is either really terrible quality, or it's too expensive, or it's outsourced. Like they do, like most of the work is done like in India or whatever else. I actually do outsource the clipping of images because we shoot so many images of new products all the time. I do.
China?
We use
clipping shop.
That's we use one out of India. But it saves a lot of time. It's just not worth it to have a graphic design. We have 4 graphic designers. It's not worth it to have them sit there and clip out images all day.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, we did that too. We'd send all of our stuff to China.
Yeah.
Back at my old job.
But I think I was looking at your stuff today, and you guys do some good work, and so I was talking to Dave about trying to work that out. We'll see. We'll see.
That was more encouragement than I got from my last job. What you just said right there.
Really,
the entire time.
Yeah, and plus I work with textile companies and stuff too, so maybe there can be some hookups here.
Straight up.
Yeah. So
the hardest part about textiles is making them look real. Especially when you get like metallics like really reflective stuff. That's hard to do.
And a lot of the people that are hitting up Mike, I think what you told me earlier too, is they're not hitting you up just for like nice renders. They're hitting you up because like they want to try and sell you like a web thing where like you can look at different styles on the web and or change
like a 3D room planner.
Right.
Like Autodesk has a version called something called Home Styler where it's they basically they want to charge you to do a 3D rendering of every item that you have, and we have like 22,000 SKUs, and so that would be ridiculously expensive to do that.
Yeah, we did that too. We actually did that for a company here in Dallas.
Right.
Like one of our big things was we'd take the images of their stuff, create a repeat of it, throw it into a 3D room scene, and we'd have to render out. And there were 5 different room scenes that we were doing for. One for every SKU that was coming out. So there'd be like, 30 collections and like 24 images in each collection and 5 different room scenes. It was ridiculous. Yeah. That was so stressful. That's when I stopped working out and I gained 20 pounds.
Well, our stuff, one of the problems that I've found is, we do a lot of old world traditional stuff, a lot of like mixed materials, like we'll do stone and wood carvings and metal pieces and glass and all these mixed materials. And it's, a lot of times when people are looking at it to model it, they don't expect there to be that much work involved. You guys probably know way more about it than I do, but the quotes that we get end up being super ridiculous because the detail that's involved in our product as far as materials and the carvings and stuff. But
Do you guys do any photography work as well?
Yeah, I built a Silo studio. I think every company should have that is constantly introducing products. They should have a Silo studio, because it makes it so much easier just to, the products comes in. I mean, we make everything overseas. The product comes in, it gets inspected, it goes straight into the studio, and then you immediately shoot photography. Every Silo image you need, every detail you need, and then you just have that content. And so, it's super convenient.
I agree.
And we do all of our video production in-house too. We have a little editing suite set up, and we have a video guy. And I was going to ask you guys if you had any opinions on new cameras, because we're in the market to buy a camera. So we've been looking at some of the 4K stuff. We were looking at a Sony camera that just came out, and I can't remember the model number off the top of my head. But
man, there's a lot of good ones coming out right now.
Didn't the C300 Mark II or something just come out?
Yeah. I would go with some sort of Canon.
The issue with those is that they're so modular. We were looking for something that's more of an ENG camera that's easier to use, so we can do some like run and gun stuff without having like ridiculous contraptions and mounts and stuff attached to it. Because we're using DSLRs right now for our video.
Oh yeah,
and it's just
Canons.
Yeah, we're using all.
See, the only upside is that if you got one of those nicer like 4K Canons, all the menu structure and the buttons are exactly the same. You don't have to learn anything new.
And you can use the lenses from the digital SLRs that you're using right now.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll talk more about it later.
Yeah, too bad you're not coming to NAB. You can come check out all the new cameras.
I missed it the last couple of.
Just come for a day. You're in LA, right? It's like a 4-hour drive.
Well, I'll be in North Carolina actually for that week. So yeah.
Wow, that's fun.
That's a long flight too.
It's like if
no offense to our North Carolina listeners.
If you like biscuits and gravy, it's a great place. No.
Well, now that's. You actually built some of the studio up from where it was, to where it is now, right? When you started.
When I came on board, I actually just a short background. Dave and I used to work together. We had a production business. We traveled on the road and did large.
Here in Dallas?
Yes, here in Dallas. We did large-scale arena tours, and we did all the content for that. And,
on George Strait together. That was fun.
Did George Strait tour. So anything video or graphics related for these big tours, Dave and I did that. And then I was doing pre-production on another tour, and I moved to L.A., during pre-production, and then the tour I was working on was postponed because of the earthquake in Haiti. This was 7 years ago. And the tour that we were working on, it was like a charity tour for kids in Africa, and all of a sudden no one cared about kids in Africa anymore because Haiti thing happened, and so the tour got postponed. So I was doing video editing jobs and things like that around LA, and I took a job with this furniture company, and I ended up sort of taking over their marketing. It was sort of a really easy transition, just with a graphic background and video background, to sort of jump in. And before I was there, they didn't really, there was no consumer advertising. There was no, all the photography stuff was outsourced. All the video stuff was outsourced. And so basically we just kind of built an in-house production house, added graphic designers, sort of upgraded how everything worked there. And now we've got 7-8 people in the department, and we basically do everything in-house.
Very nice.
So we're going to bounce back and forth here a little in our notes, but we wanted to cover a little more of the creativity stuff and go on to, talking about managing a team. We got some questions from some listeners. And, last week we started talking about what makes you creative. Like, are you creative when you're born? Do you learn it when you're a kid? Do you learn it later? Can you learn it later if you don't feel like you have it? What is being creative? Is being creative having, is it the same as having talent, I guess? Is it different? is creativity a perspective? Do some people from the outside of your field look at you and say, "Oh, you're so creative," and people within your field look at your stuff and say, "Oh, you're just emulating a style." That's the kind of thing we talked about last week. And so to kind of continue on it, we're going to talk about, we got a response email. I think it was from Matt. And so I'll just go into that. It's kind of a long email, but he covers a bunch of stuff. And I think we can kind of come back to it and talk about these different sections. So Matt says, thanks for the talk on the podcast about creativity. I like where you guys are going with the discussion. I can't wait for more. Of all the podcasts I've listened to and hundreds of articles, it's all theory. It's all fluff, nothing substantial. I'm looking for what I can do on a daily or weekly basis, what classes I can take, what exercises I can do. Is there community ed classes, not just principles of design? Everyone talks about them, but no one says where they are. I know it's a bit of a nebulous subject, and everyone learns different and discovers differently, but it's frustrating. I'm looking into continued education classes at local colleges and community ed programs, but there's not much out there. If anyone has a book, class series, online learning, etc., I'd totally like to look at that. I've even looked at iTunes U, but it's pretty hard to sift through all the old crap that's just thrown out there. Plus, my job doesn't help. I wear a dozen different hats every week, so I don't get really deep into one discipline. Haven't had a 3D job in a month. It's mostly editing. And then maybe the next week you'd be shooting, have to troubleshoot tape backup systems and whatnot, fiber networks, DHCP.
Sounds like an old job of mine.
We now have a 980 Ti in the machine. It's his boss's old machine, and a 980 in the other editor's machine. He says, when I get Octane, I told the boss man that I'm stealing his 980 Ti. That's why I got the 850 watt PSU. I think there was a picture on Twitter we talked about. Good news is I'm getting a small job next week that might help get the boss spring for Octane. Right now, we're just shooting. We're just using the 980 Ti's for Premiere, which helps with the 4K footage. Sorry about the long email, just brimming with questions. P.S. I did my internship in 1998-99 in Dallas working on the Barney and Friends show in Las Colinas, which I think have a lot of friends who've probably worked on that since we're in Dallas. So,
where is he from? Where is he?
I think St. Paul, Minneapolis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, a lot there, but basically, to sum it up, more about what you can actually do on a daily basis rather than theories, books, methods, exercises, classes, stuff like that, to keep yourself creative.
I'll agree with that. Like anytime I wanted to learn something new, I'd take a class at, just the local community college. Man, I've racked up probably a master's and a half worth of credits just at community colleges, just taking random courses of stuff that I wanted to learn about. I took iPhone app development courses, and I don't know how to develop iPhone apps. I took a bunch of coding classes. I took a bunch of HTML classes. I took, in fact, when I started moving over to 3D, I took a Maya class, and that helped with modeling more than anything.
But flip that the other way. Let's say that you already knew how to create iPhone apps, and you knew the technicalities of it, but you didn't know how to make like a real killer app or something that really looked really great. Do you think that going to a community college or something like that is really going to take you to that next level? Or are you just going to hear the same thing over and over again?
It depends on the teacher, and it depends on the class that you take.
It's a crapshoot.
Like if you know how to code a whole bunch of stuff, but you don't know how to create a user interface or a really nice design because you don't know your basic design principles, going to class and learning about that's going to teach you a whole bunch. If you know how to code, but you don't know how to use Photoshop, go and take a Photoshop class. or just look online. There's lots of tutorials for Photoshop. It's very easy.
Lynda.com. I learned so much from Lynda.com. I mean, this, maybe that's at a lower level, but
No, I learned 3ds Max through Lynda.com. It's a really good resource.
California, depending on what state you're in, you might check. If money is an issue, also, California gives people money. It's part of the payroll tax that you pay, a regular paycheck. They give money to people. It's called the California Re-Education Program, I believe, and they'll pay for you to go and take even creative courses. And the idea is to keep the creative industry in California, and so you can go to local. There's schools that are actually set up just to take advantage of that government money. That there are creative schools and things like that. And if you
That's
live
cool.
in the city of LA, for example, you can get an LA library card. And with that library card, you get a free membership to lynda.com, which is incredible.
That's
so
really
I have
awesome.
all my folks, I make them go get a library card so they can.
Yeah,
access
that's really
lynda.com.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Now, here's an idea, and I don't know if this would help or not, because I understand the whole situation where, let's say you want to learn to be a better 3D artist, and you start getting some books. A lot of the books are going to go back into theory, but that doesn't give you creativity. That doesn't really teach you to think outside the box. That just teaches you what's expected from the get-go. One idea that might actually help, and this is something that I've done from time to time, and usually not like because I want to be more creative or learn more. It's because I'll be in a situation where I need a boost or I need an idea or something, is I'll try and emulate a style. Or I'll try and even now it wouldn't be demo reel material, but directly copy something just to figure out how it was done. I try and reverse engineer how something was done. Because although it sounds very technical, once you start really digging into something and deconstructing it, you start to learn and see more about what's in that than anything. For example, when I first started 3D, I decided to try and redo the pinball number count from Sesame Street.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Now,
12.
I've seen it a million times when I was a kid, and I've watched it, back in my college days, when we were looking for something to smoke out to and watch. But it's like there's something about pausing and deconstructing. Even in my daughter now, I see this because she likes to watch a regular show. She was watching it the other day, and she decided to pause on a frame and draw what was on the screen. And it reminded me of doing that
cool.
when I was a kid. I'd do it with like Charlie Brown or Bugs Bunny or something. You sit there
I did it with Sonic the Hedgehog.
and you draw it with a pencil, right?
Yeah, I beat the end of the game. I think it was either Sonic 1 or Sonic 2, I don't know. But at the very end, he jumps forward into the screen and does this thumbs up type thing, And so I paused the screen on that one so that I could draw it. That's funny.
But when you do something like that, you start to see things that you didn't realize were there before. You really learn it. You really learn all the nooks and crannies of it. Whether it's something cartoonish, whether you're trying to recreate something that was done, maybe it's an architectural, and you're recreating something in a photo, you really start to learn that scene, and you start to see all the little details. So, sometimes if you just pick something apart and try and deconstruct it and actually rebuild it, you learn so much about how it was built. So if it's something that is done by somebody you really admire and, someone on the internet or something where you really like their reel, you really like their work, and you sit there and you pick it apart, all of a sudden it's kind of like getting a gateway into the person's head on what their thought process is. And when we talked about last week, the whole neuroplasticity thing, how you can kind of get stuck in this always one path of doing something. This is something that could actually help break you out of that mold by changing your thinking process, because you're learning someone else's thinking process and how they went about doing something. And you're like, wow, they thought of that detail right there. I never would have thought about that before. And although you're creating something that is just a replica, and it's not something you would want to put on your reel again, I think that's one thing that could be pretty helpful.
Yeah, I really like opening up people's projects and taking a look at how they did stuff, like how we did things similarly and what we did differently. You know, we're opening up their materials or textures or whatever and seeing what they did versus what I would do.
Beeple would be a good, like, if you really like what Beeple does, he puts all of his project files out there. So if you want to go down that road, maybe get that and get some of his project files and start tearing them apart. His newest one, once you get Octane here soon, his newest one that he did was all done in Octane, and I took it and I tore it apart just to see. I wasn't really interested in the work itself, but more about the organization of the project itself. So that's one way. What about y'all?
Well, I mean, I kind of said my opinion.
It's a tough. I think I struggle the most with the technical stuff is always like Googleable, but the art part is the tough thing. And sometimes I go through periods where I have no inspiration for something new, and sometimes I'll have a lot of stuff. But what's helped is finding favorite artists. Just researching, bookmarking things, and coming back to them later, or making notes. I'm
real bad about bookmarking and then never coming back to it.
Yeah. I definitely do some of that too. But find favorite artists, like learn what they do, like screenshot things, start inspiration folders, and I think especially what Dave said rings true. Try to find something that you like and try to emulate it, but in your own way. Don't just copy it. I see so many people. We talked about this before, Dave. And we might get into like some hiring stuff later. But when you're looking at someone's demo reels, you see like tutorials that you've done yourself that they've totally ripped off. It's just frame for frame exactly what is in the tutorial, and really people should try to use that as a guide, but make it their own. Put something different, find an element that they didn't use and put into it.
Yeah. Now that's a good point, though. You can't Google creativity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why it's frustrating for so many people, because people like me, I'm very techie.
I mean, technically you can.
Well, yeah, you can.
Let's see what comes
straight up steal.
Yeah.
Hey, what'd they say about stealing and whatever?
Something, Steve Jobs. So some of the other things, like books, for example, I wonder if there's more you can do as far as books go. Like maybe not a book on design at all.
Good artist copy, great artist steal.
Yeah.
That was Picasso.
But that was Steve Jobs quoting him What about books? What about books that are not related to design themselves? What about some sort of book that might help you in your understanding of your view of the world, or things like that? Stuff that kind of makes you think a little bit different in that aspect, short of doing drugs or something. I mean, that's probably a good option. Their methods, exercises, classes, like we said earlier, classes are very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Now also, Mike, there's the classes you were talking about earlier, the California thing that they allocate the taxes to.
Yeah, like there's one school close to downtown. I haven't taken any of the classes, so I can't vouch for them. But they have classes on Cinema 4D and Maya and a bunch of different stuff, even Photoshop and Illustrator and whatever else. But they're taught by movie industry and creative industry California people that are professionals, and they're free. They're classes that would normally cost $1,200 to $3,000, and they're totally free through the California payroll tax. Yeah,
like a continuing education type thing.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as creativity, in those classes,
Do you
who
actually
knows?
get like college credits and stuff?
Well, they have. I looked at it a little bit. They have maybe some of it's transferable, but they have kind of their own. You could take a Cinema 4D focused coursework where there's like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then accompanying classes that like an After Effects class or other classes sort of accompany it. So they'll put together programs with different semesters of classes. It isn't necessarily a degree, but like will help you become proficient and a master of these, at least the technical side of these programs.
And when it comes to exercises too, adding a constraint is always something that can help. Now, of course, this is if you're doing something on your own. I don't think if you're working on a client's project, you should purposely add some sort of constraint. Usually they do that for you. But, when the grayscale gorilla stuff started years ago, that was one of the first things that Nick Campbell actually said about 5-second projects is doing a 5-second project gives you a couple constraints. It gives you the subject matter as a constraint. It gives you the 5 seconds as a constraint. And that allows you to kind of get creative in that aspect, because if you come up with a concept and you can't fit it in 5 seconds, you either got to change your concept or find another way to go about, maybe getting across an idea or some sort of subject matter within that 5 seconds. It's like painting with your hand behind your back or something. It's gonna help you think a little bit different, because you can't do the stuff that you always do over and over.
I like that. And it also it also helps you focus. There's so many options. I mean, there's like, trillions of things that you could possibly do in different directions. And if you have like just some basic parameters, then I think it helps to focus your creativity.
Just a push in the right direction. So I don't know. Is there anything else? I wish we had more. I wish there was more to say. The problem is,
it's subjective.
It really is.
Yeah. And so that's why everybody talks about them. That's why everybody says, there's all these things you can do, but they can't quite put their finger on what it is, because, there's just something, even when it comes to identifying, let's say you're identifying creativity, or you're identifying a good reel, or somebody who has good tastes. It's partially subjective, but there is a general consensus where, like 98% of all artists would look at a certain reel and say, well, yeah, that's the good one. And then you ask them why, and maybe they can't even say why. Mm-hmm. They just know that it's good. And, it's not even design principles. It's like sometimes there are some people...
Yeah, but here's the thing. With design principles, that's the whole point of design principles, is there are these principles that have come up that help, like, almost subconsciously make you think that it's pretty design.
True.
And I think the people who don't understand why they like it or not, it's because they're so used to seeing these basic design principles in everyday life that they don't realize that someone is not using those design principles, or they're using them poorly,
Yeah, that's true. Just because of what you see in television, advertising, all of that, you kind of know. But there are also people at the same time that don't even have to study that stuff. They just, they've been around it their whole lives, just like we have. But for some reason, they're able to put something on paper or in animation or whatever it is that fits design principles without ever taking any classes on design. Somehow it's just like magic. That's their creativity. iTunes U, I don't know if there's anything good there. I haven't really looked. Looking to see what else was in this email here. Books, online learning. A lot of the really good motion graphic designers out there didn't even go to school for it. And that's what's crazy about it, is you can find a lot of this stuff on the internet. It's just hard to find. I think repetition also leads to creativity eventually. And not because the repetition makes you creative. I think what happens is repetition actually takes the thinking out of the technical process. You and I, again, we talk about this all the time, how many logos we've done over and over and over and over again. Well, when we don't have to think about how we're actually going to do the animation, then it kind of leaves us open to think about what the animation is going to look like. You don't, have to think, oh, I'm going to keyframe this from here to here, and then I'm going to slide it down and stagger it this way, and then here's how I'm going to render it, and here's how I'm going to composite it. You've done it so many times, you already know. And so that kind of leaves you open to the rest of it, because the other part's just going to be a breeze.
Yeah. Know your tools. Know your instrument.
Think about a guitar player, I guess. Somebody who knows all the fundamentals, and they play. They practice. What do you call them? What do you call them on the guitar? I guess scales. No, it's not. Besides scales, like arpeggios and
just different exercises.
All the technical stuff. If you ask somebody who is just starting guitar to come up with something super creative on the guitar, how hard is that going to be when you don't even know fundamentals? If fundamentals are so second nature to you, then all you're worried about is the creative part at that point, because your fingers are just automatically going to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I agree. I played in a band for a really long time. Eventually you get all this muscle memory of, playing guitar, that you can do it basically when you're, have had quite a few beers.
And Mike, you're in a band. Do you want to plug the band while we're at it?
Well, I'm in a band. If you're in LA, please come out and see us. I'm in a band called Folk Riot. It's kind of an indie.
Isn't everyone in a band in LA though? I'm just kidding.
Sort of.
Yours is doing pretty well though.
We're doing okay. Yeah, we have a lot of fun, and we have a fun group of friends and following out there, and we just started a new residency at the Hotel Cafe. I don't know if you guys remember, years ago, they actually, this venue actually put on a tour. They had the Hotel Cafe tour, and they would tour around, and they had like singer-songwriters and Americana and different musicians. They'd have 2 tour buses, and they'd bring one band and then the singer-songwriters. And so the one band would sort of learn the singer-songwriters' songs, and they would perform, and they would do like 2 songs a piece and then rotate, and then they'd play 2 songs again, and they did like a House of Blues tour. Anyways, pretty cool venue. There's not a lot of places left like that in Hollywood. There's a lot of development around there, and a lot of the old fun music venues are kind of getting knocked down or turned into pay for play or being used for something different. So Hotel Cafe is one of the staples in Hollywood that, makes his money off of live music, and there's you pay a small fee at the door to get in, and they're still hanging on and doing well. They actually opened another room and added on to the venue. And the funny thing is that Hotel Cafe, it was in this old building off of Cahuenga in Hollywood, and they were one of the only businesses that didn't sell out on the block for the new construction. And right now, they're actually building a hotel around the Hotel Cafe. It's this huge construction project, and you basically walk in between the cranes and the things like that to get into the venue right now. But anyways, Folk Riot, come out and see us if you're in LA.
Do you have, I know you've sent me tracks personally, but do you have stuff online that's available somewhere?
Yeah, we have some stuff online. We really need to get back to recording. We have so many songs, and we've really been focusing on kind of doing some live shows, and we really need to get back in the studio and record some more stuff. But yeah, we do have, you can find us, find some stuff online. We have a website, folkriot.com. Not much on there right now, but you can find us on SoundCloud and Facebook and Instagram.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, you probably agree with me about the guitar thing then.
Oh yeah.
I guess we got some tweets here too. I was just looking at my tweets, and so we'll kind of go into the managing a team thing, I guess.
Sure.
Well, real quick, if you guys are listening, and we'd really love to know how you guys feel about creativity, where it comes from, or at least where you guys get it from. It's a really interesting thing because everyone does it a different way.
Yeah.
So send us your thoughts. We'd really like to hear from you.
Yeah, and I'll say I do have a semi-creative job, and then I have the band thing too, and I constantly struggle with creativity, constantly, and so I'd like to know what some other people do to sort of grow and become more creative.
Who is the main writer in your band?
Main writer Brandon McCulloch. Yeah.
And does he ever struggle with that type of thing, coming up with?
Brandon is kind of he's sort of a prodigy in songwriting. It's kind of comes natural to him. He lives sort of the lifestyle. He lives like the creative lifestyle. If you go to his apartment, it's not like a regular place where people live. He has inspiration and crazy stuff everywhere. Like he just lives in fun stuff, record players and crazy old lamps and
I think I've seen some pictures.
Bikes hanging from the ceiling, and he'll actually like we'll do some recording in his living room, we'll do some recording in his kitchen. He'll move recording studio around in his house and record in different places, and he has a reel-to-reel recorder that he plays with,
Nice.
He just basically lives creativity, all day long, and he just covers himself with it, and sometimes you just have to do that, although he's not married, doesn't have kids.
Yeah.
He can focus on that stuff. But that's the lifestyle that he's chosen. He's a musician, and he's an artist.
Does he do, like, he does actual writing? Does he write the parts for each instrument too, or do you guys kind of?
We collaborate on some of the parts, but definitely he definitely helps me with my parts here and there. He plays multiple instruments. I think that also helps, experimenting with different instruments, and I'm sure that the same thing goes for design. Trying different programs, different plugins, different emulating different people. The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the managing the team thing, we'll get over that. We got. I guess we talked about the history of what how you started the company and what you do now. But before I guess we get to the questions, let's talk about the hiring process, because I've hired people either as employees, I've hired people as contractors. I think you've done a lot more hiring, and I would love to hear about that process and what you do. What venues do you use to do the hiring? Are you doing a lot of are you using any staffing agencies? Are you doing it all yourself? How you're filtering things, how you're finding people that don't suck?
Well, I've got some great folks that work with me, and it took me a long time to figure out how to do proper hiring.
Mm-hmm.
When you hire somebody, it has to be the right fit. Like that's the number one thing. Like you can interview someone and they're the best in the world at something, but in my particular situation, it's a very corporate environment, and so the fit is very important.
Which is hard to be creative in a corporate environment, I imagine.
It is. It's hard to say, hey, sit in this cubicle from 8 to 5 and be creative. It's almost it's really difficult. It takes the right kind of person. And in LA, it's also very difficult because that's where creatives go to get jobs at agencies and work for TV studios and whatever else. And so how do you attract the right person that's going to stay, that's going to be a solid member of a team at a home furnishings company in LA? So that's a big problem. That's a big challenge.
Everybody's there to work that job until they get their big break with Lucasfilm.
The next best thing. Yeah, if they get to work on Batman, then they're gone.
Yeah.
So, that's you have to find somebody that wants, like, in my case, it's not the same for agencies. You guys have worked for agencies. My girlfriend works for an agency. At agencies, it's much more flexible. Like, bring your dog to work. There's there's a lot of different ways you can be creative. In a corporate environment, it's business casual every day, so you have to dress a certain way. It's there's a little stricter rules on arriving to work on time, and it's more of a sort of regimented sort of situation. So again, the right person. Now, how do I find these people? Probably not the right way. We try. we probably should be using headhunters for the right job. Somebody that has experience in hiring the right person. What we do is we post to different job boards and then spend a tremendous amount of time sifting through the garbage. And
how much garbage do you get?
It's 99.9% garbage, and it's some of the stuff is the people aren't even they don't even know what job they're applying to. It's like copy and paste, apply to every job on the internet. Yeah, you get a lot of that, and so you just have to. Just
what immediately grabs your attention. Like what would someone do that would immediately grab your attention?
I think address certain points that are in the ad. If there's an ad out for a graphic designer, and we make certain like a reference to it would help if you had a basic understanding of HTML. It would help if you have some experience with After Effects, something like that. If somebody says, hey, I read your ad, and I think I'm perfect for the job because I do have this, I do have this, I do have this. Like, just make it obvious that that you want a job, and that you think that you would be a good fit for that exact job. Make something personal in your message. Don't just send your resume. Make at least some sort of personal note to make me think that you read the ad and you actually do think that you would be a good fit for the job.
Do you send them to like a website from Craigslist where they have to fill out information and fill out all their CV again on the website that they just attached?
No, I don't do that. Actually, no. We have a careers area of our website, but we'll put the jobs on there. But not a lot of people are coming to our website searching for careers. Like, people like to make it easy. Like, they go to LinkedIn or they go to Monster.com. They go somewhere that they can see a lot of jobs. They don't seek out individual websites for career. So, I think LinkedIn is getting popular for posting jobs and whatever else. But what I do is, we'll use Craigslist and the different job boards, and we'll just have them send their resume and a cover letter and email, and depending on the job, a portfolio or a link to their reel, just in an email form, and we kind of go from there. But then when they come in for the interview, that's when we make them fill out all that crap again. Because I think there's actually HR laws where you actually have to keep that on file, like legally for a certain amount of years or something like that. So they do have to fill out some of that stuff when they come in.
I went and interviewed with a company, and they made me fill it all out again, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And so they had a questionnaire at the end, and they said, how could we improve, blah, blah, blah. And I said, don't make people fill it out a second time.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
And then I didn't get hired. And they had another questionnaire. They're like, will you please take this survey of how the interview process went and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, screw you. No, I didn't get the job. Why would I waste my time helping you better improve your company?
Here's something else interesting. Like, we have a couple of folks at the front, that work as I don't want to call them the receptionist. They do a lot more than that. But people that work at the front desk. So when you come in for the first time, that's when we start judging you. So if you're rude to the person that's at the front desk, if you're visibly unhappy about having to sit down and fill out like your information, in the reference form and all that sort of stuff, that's an indication that you might not be a good fit. So like you have to think about that, like how you present yourself when you come in, like, treat everybody with respect, because they're going to tell me, they're going to say, hey, we got, are you ready for this guy out here? He wasn't too happy about filling out the form. So, just get ready. They're going to tell me, and so a lot of people don't think about that. They think that everything, it's all separate. All people are separate, but we definitely communicate.
Well, I didn't like filling out the form. I probably wouldn't have gotten hired at your place.
Keep it to yourself, You can not like it. That's fine. But and we were talking about the demo reels, before. I think like one thing that I look for in a demo reel is like you look for a variety, and I hire a different type of person than you guys would. We don't do a lot of 3D stuff. But for an editing reel, for example, I look for things that are obviously not just a bunch of, tutorial stuff thrown together. I look for somebody.
That's what we look for too. That's what we tell them.
So
tell everyone not to do that.
Yeah. So I look for things that like somebody, even if it's a personal project or a college project, like something that, I want to see that they have, the basic technical skill. And then, after looking at thousands and thousands of these things, you get kind of a good feel for whether they actually did the work or whether they didn't. So the other thing is, make sure it's your work. Don't put some Nike commercial in that you obviously didn't do. Especially when.
How about that, Matt?
No. Well, here's the thing.
This is like our ongoing disagreement.
He's saying make sure it's your work.
Yeah.
He's not saying don't create fake work.
Oh.
What do you think about that?
Well, fake work is kind of a good exercise. I mean, as long as you're not.
Thank you.
Should it be on the reel? Like, okay, if a guy walks in.
Well, if he's young and he's been in college and he developed some stuff for that, then that's if you're hiring a lower like entry level sort of job, I think that's okay. If you're at a higher level, then maybe not.
This is exactly what I've been saying.
If someone had a Nike commercial on their reel and you're like, oh, you did that, and they're like, well, I mean. Yeah, I did that for fun.
No, I did the commercial, but it wasn't actually for Nike. It was mostly for spec work that I was doing for myself.
I guess that depends. That's a good question.
I use the Nike symbol just to impress you.
Yeah,
is what I think in my head. But
yeah, it's like on people's websites they'll put like featured in Newsweek and CNN and whatever else, like to somehow validate the product. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I was talking more about like make sure you don't put an Apple commercial on there that I recognize and I know that you didn't do, that you get a lot of that stuff too.
Do you tend to? I mean, do you get a lot of that? Like just people just with BS on their reels, or is it more just bad reels?
Well, I think it's both. There's definitely bad reels and definitely. Stuff that they obviously didn't do, like maybe something that they took from, maybe they worked as like an assistant editor or they cut some stuff for a short period at an agency, and maybe one thing that they, like maybe a project that they filed, all the footage into folders on, they put that on their reel, like that they worked on it, like what did you do? Like make it obvious, like what did you do? And a lot of times
I was caterer on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Craft services on this one, and makeup artist on this one, and so and I think a lot of times you can tell somebody has kind of a cadence and a rhythm and a style, to their work. If they're a little bit evolved in their art, they have you can kind of tell that they have everything's cohesive. Everything kind of feels like it's from the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got that. So I'm guessing the turnover. How is the turnover rate? Is it pretty high where you're at? Like, What was it? Have you been able to rein that in, to bring that in a little bit?
I've learned a lot about, like I said, hiring the right people, and I've been able to minimize that. We've had some different periods of time where, we've had higher turnover rate. It's always hard to keep a web guy. It's like,
Really?
Yeah, because there's so much work out there for web people, for web designers and web developers. I mean, developer jobs are pretty common in California, and I think that the nature of the job is like, in my opinion, it's pretty boring work. And that's just me. I mean, some people I'm sure find it like really interesting, but it's not. It's one of those things where I feel like, because there's so many opportunities out there, and it is a sort of a high-paying sort of position, that they'll come in. When you start at a company like mine, we might not start you off at a super high salary. We want to make sure that you're good to go, and you'll get regular raises and things like that. Because it's a salaried job. It's not a contractor job. So you're not selling us a business. You're actually going to come in and be a full-time employee. And I think that once they rebuild our website or they finish some project, they have that to add to their reel and get another job that's higher paying,
right.
And move along, use it as a stepping stone.
Right.
Or they feel like, what, I've done this, like, no more furniture. I want to do something. I want to do something else. And so that's one position. We're not a web company, so it's difficult to keep somebody's interest there and keep that, keep that position filled.
Developers.
But there's graphic design. I mean, there's I have one. There's a girl that works for me that she's been there. She's a graphic designer. She's been there longer than I have, and so we do have, there's a culture of people there that have been there for quite a while. And I think our graphic design team right now is kind of like that. They want to work in a place like this. They're comfortable there. They get along really well. They work together well. They enjoy the speed, and they're used to getting up and coming to work at 8 a.m. and working from 8 to 5. And so once you find that sort of good group of people, it's really important to sort of nurture them and make sure that they're happy, and be the best resource to them that you can be. Sometimes you have to make a hard decision. You'll have somebody that's a super negative energy, and the hardest thing that I've ever done is, we talk about hiring the right people, getting rid of somebody. Once you've hired somebody, it's so important to hire somebody that you feel really good about, and not just try them out, because then they're there and you sort of know something about them, and that like they have, they have kids, and they have bills and stuff. And then if it's not working out, like it feels really terrible to have to let somebody go. A little less terrible if they are a cancerous type of person that's very negative, that's creating this, this I don't know, a
negative aura.
Yeah, that's just bringing everybody down, and it's contagious. I mean, one person can totally turn the entire group
like
against
destructive way of thinking or something like that.
Yeah.
Or what is it?
And creative people are tend to be like that. I hate to say that. I hate to say it, but creative people it's difficult to manage a group of creatives. It really is.
That goes into Paul Robinson's question on Twitter, which is, how do you keep a team motivated when the work can seem repetitive and stagnant, i.e. like rotoscoping and such? Thanks, guys. #Brogy.
Rotoscoping. Outsource.
Outsource. But that comes back to it comes back to your web guys too, because your web guy, you're a web guy and you're doing furniture. That's very repetitive. So in order to bring that back to what you were just talking about, in order to keep that person motivated, in order to keep that person from maybe going down that negative road, so like what can you do to keep that person motivated, because I'm a web guy. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking furniture, but I would maybe like to work for Google. How do you keep them from getting that negative energy? How do you keep them feeling like they would rather be in the place that they are than maybe to go somewhere else?
I think we're talking about two different things. Keeping somebody motivated and to have a high output of high quality work, and then keeping somebody happy at the job. I think they're kind of two separate things. Keeping somebody happy, I think the most important thing is to give them credit, make them feel appreciated, make them feel like they're part of the team, ask for their opinion all the time. Like,
sorry.
I mean, so many jobs I've had where, people, maybe the guy in charge like has good intentions, but he just doesn't think about it. He's so busy and thinking about other things. When you're leading a team, you're working for them. They're doing most of the actual work. You have to work for them and make them feel comfortable and give them anything they need. I know every single day, and it took me a while to get to this point, every single day I ask everyone if they need anything from me. I make it a point to check in with every person every day, no matter how busy I am, and ask them if there's anything I can do for them, if there's anything I can need, if anything they need. And I make it a point. I have post-it notes around my monitor. I have a post-it note that says "we." Talk about us. Don't what can we do to do something better? How can we be better? Don't negatively single people out, and make it a point to give people credit for things. Find things that somebody did and publicly show your appreciation for it.
Oh man, Matt and I know that all too well.
Yeah.
We've been in some bad situations where it is a we situation from the point of the employees, but from the upper management perspective, it's a we as in we upper management did all of this.
Yeah.
That all the peons downstairs I did this.
It just feels bad. Like if you're a person, especially if you're a good employee, then you have passion for what you do and you take pride in your work. And even though you don't set out to, you might not be the type of person that says, I really want to be recognized for this. Like, I want the credit for this. I did this. Maybe you're not that type of person. I
am.
You don't have to be that type of person. It just feels good to be recognized. I mean, and that it's important for the health of the employee. It's important for the health of the group. It's important for people's mental health to just feel like everybody knows the contributions that they're making.
People don't want to ask for recognition. They want it to they want to be recognized without having to ask, because if they have to ask, then they feel like a jerk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? It breeds this, like, after a while, people start to see it. Have you guys seen that video online of the teacher that works with special needs kids, and every single day he brings each one of them up in a row and compliments them, like says, "You're so smart, you're this, you're that." And after a while, all the kids do it to each other. They compliment each other in the same way, and they say, "Hey, yeah, you are really smart. Yeah, you're a great singer." And same principle. I mean, these are not kids. These are very complicated adults. But if you show appreciation, you recognize people for things, they'll start recognizing each other for it, and it breeds a little bit of competition, because he was mentioned in this company wide email about this the creative work that he did. I kind of want that too. Maybe you won't say it out loud, but it kind of makes you want to perform better, and it's a positive way. It's like, I hate if you focus on just the negatives, then you send people into that negative sort of spiral.
And the comment that you made too,
it creates a really toxic environment. That's what I was trying to say earlier.
And it kind of spirals out of control, because one person feeds off another who
Oh, yeah.
will say something, it feeds off the next person, and so on, and
Yeah.
it kind of ramps up. The thing you said though about managers or bosses as well who don't understand certain aspects, it's such a dangerous thing. There's a difference between maybe an owner or a boss who isn't involved in the day-to-day activities because he's busy, doing sales or that kind of thing. But there's still a certain amount of understanding that needs to go into what the other people are doing and how much work's involved. And when it becomes so disconnected that different departments or different department heads have no clue what anybody under them actually does, it's just a recipe for disaster, because either everybody's going to start to hate each other or resent each other, or it's going to be a situation where things start to fall apart financially because, one hand is selling something that the other hand can't produce on time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, or they're selling stuff that never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. But then there's the other side of that question. That's about making people, feel important. I mean, they are important if they're working for you. But the other side of it is keeping people motivated, and that's to keep the output of work at a high level, and that's difficult when you're doing something super boring like rotoscoping. And honestly, I outsource my rotoscoping. All the silly stuff we were talking about earlier. But as far as the monotonous stuff, there's a couple of people in my department that handle a lot of the monotonous stuff. But I think it's really important to give them a variety of tasks so they can sort of jump around a little bit on it. So, you don't have to sit there and do, copy and paste a logo into something like a million times. You can go over to some sort of other creative project to sort of break up the monotony. Take creative breaks. We try to have, this past Friday, we kind of, took the end of the day and just kind of hung out together in the conference room and sort of like we played Hangman and we watched some videos on YouTube together to just kind of just take a break. We had been doing a lot of long, boring stuff, and it's good to just kind of get out of it a little bit. And
See, I find what's interesting is, companies that claim to be creative companies that don't do creative or fun things with their employees. They keep it a really stagnant and boring like environment, but claim to be the creative ones involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the creative experts or whatever.
Yeah, we're certainly guilty of that. I mean, I think agencies maybe. I've never worked for an agency, but I know I've heard of like fun creative, meetings that they have with word association and things when they're trying to come up with ideas and bounce things.
A lot of agencies are different. Like the agency that I worked for just last week versus the agency I worked for a year ago, two totally different ways of thinking. One was much more fun, much more upbeat, and like really positive, and tried to create a really fun environment. And then this other place was just super toxic, and they were slave drivers and they just wanted to get everything done on time and didn't care about your personal life or whatever, and we're over promising and under delivering. I don't know.
Yeah.
And there was no, like, you didn't have fun at that job.
Yeah. That's I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. That's why I left.
There's this like we say, I think a lot on the show now is a lot of times you have to just kind of fake it all the time. I feel like I'm just faking it in everything, and that I fake everything that I do basically. And being thrown into it is part of it. I think that a lot of times people think, well, I don't have the skills necessary to do X. And it's not until they're thrown into that position that they realize that they could do it just like the other person could, because they were probably also thrown into it. A good example of that is Lance, who's been on the show before. And there's a couple things to this. Number one, he had seniority over me at another place a long time ago. And then I got a different job and I came back around and I hired him. For one thing, there's a difficult, I guess I'll circle away from the topic I was going to, and I'll hit this first. There's a difficult thing when you hire friends. It's difficult because if you're their manager, you've got to balance that, and it's a hard thing to do because if you're a manager, you don't want to get too personal with everybody. There's that whole thing, and I hired a couple friends of mine, and there was a weird thing that I had to do, like a switch in my head, in order to kind of balance things, but then keep everybody happy and not have them upset at me, and then, all that kind of stuff. That's one thing. But to come back to Lance, when he came in, I trained him a lot of technical stuff. Like I said last week, he had a lot more creative in him. But when I left the company and left him there, all of a sudden there is nobody to fill that technical gap anymore. There wasn't a person who was going to take over my role. So if something breaks or if something, there's an issue, I'm totally fine with him calling me, but he's been kind of thrust into that role of having to figure out, will a 970 and a 760 NVIDIA card work together or not? Or, what's wrong with this 970? Do I have to get it replaced? And how can I put, another 980 Ti in here? And, all that kind of stuff he's never had to do. He had to basically fake it and say, I'm just going to do this and hope that it works. I feel like that all the time. Somebody comes to me with a new project, something I've never done before, and I'm like, yeah, totally, I'll take your money, and then, figure out how to do it. And, most of the time it's been successful. When you were thrown into your position, essentially, did you feel that way at all? Was there any? I mean, you may have had previous experience, managing people, but of course it was in a different environment. How much of that do you feel like you had to learn on the fly? How much of it was?
Management stuff, I had to learn everything. I never intended to manage people. I didn't. I mean, when I first started with the company I'm at now, I just, I always liked to be just part of a team, and I didn't intend to be, the head of a department. So I had to, I was used to working independently and being in my own head and handling my stuff and doing the best I could to do my own job. And then when you become a manager, you have to do the best you can to help other people do their jobs. And it took me a long time to do that. I would sit there and I was doing work too. When we did a lot of video content, and before I hired a video position, I was working on video projects. I was working on graphic design projects. We were a little bit shorthanded, and I had a difficult time balancing all the stuff I was working on and being a manager. And I learned that it was very important to, be a manager first and take care of my people and check in with them, because, if you have 5 people working for you, and you're not being the best resource you can for them, it's such a waste of time. But if you're being a good resource to those 5 people, then they're doing the job of 5 people as they should be. And I think that, it takes a while to get a feel for that. And it takes a while to learn how to talk to people also, to make them feel like they're being respected and they're appreciated, as
not
opposed
talked down to.
Yeah. People, I mean, it's easy to accidentally talk down to somebody. And especially if you're young, I was,
it's even easier to purposely do that.
Oh my gosh. Totally. And I'm sure I've done it, and, I think what also helped me a little bit was my age. And Dave and I have talked about this before. We were on the road and we're working with stagehands and things like that. Stagehands are like, our dad's age, and you ask him to do something. You say, "Hey man, you want to grab that?" They're like, "Well, I don't want to grab it." Like everything is a joke to them, and they don't take you seriously because you're young.
Or they call you a racist.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. There's some hilarious stories from that period of time, but that's the reason I grew a beard, is to look a little bit older. but yeah, like when you're a little young for the position, I think it forces you to be super smart about and learn how to be a good leader, because people don't want to take you seriously.
People resent
younger.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. There's a lot of resentment, so you have to figure out how to get past that, and a lot of that is the people that you hire too. So it all kind of goes together.
You will get, there's a certain amount of it that you just have to blow off, because you will get, it doesn't matter, like you said, you might accidentally say something in a way that people think that you're talking down to them or whatever it is, because there's things that you have to say. Okay, you guys have got to move a little bit faster because we got to get this done. And you'll remind them like 2 or 3 times, and then they think that they're being, reprimanded or that they're being talked down upon, all that stuff. But there's part of it that you just have to blow off and be like, sometimes you got to be the bad guy. And that is also why it is, it is good to have that distance between you and those people on a personal level, because once you could become like really good friends with people that you're actually managing, then it gets to that point where it's like people don't take you seriously, and I've been in situations too where I've come up in the ranks. There's a certain amount of
fear that you have at every job that keeps you going.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
And when you come up in the ranks, though, that's I always felt like anywhere where I've come in to not necessarily a management position, which I have done once or twice, but come into a position where I am automatically higher than other people. Yes, there's going to be resentment, but there's also going to be a level of respect coming in that way. Whereas if you started at the bottom and you were up here and then you came up to management, like people won't take you as seriously because you're still one of the guys.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had that problem. Both of them have their own issues for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's hop over to this email here from Dave.
So we've had a Matt and a Dave email.
And a Paul. We had a Paul.
Yeah.
Dave says, I remember you guys saying last time you were going to have someone who's going to be on talking about managing teams. Here we are. I found myself having to manage teams on a few different occasions and found it tricky to work with those that require different work conditions. For example, on a game we worked on, one artist liked working pretty much by himself, another liked working around others. I was wondering how one would deal with situations like this. I was also wondering how ethics would come into play since different people like being treated differently. How would you figure out how to best communicate with your team members short of having everyone take a personality test? Thanks. P.S. Here's the link to my reel again. We hadn't looked at the reel because remember it wouldn't come up last week or something.
Yeah.
So we've got the link and we'll look at that again. We'll shoot you an email, tell you what we think. So let's talk about this first of all before we get into the question. What is your work environment? I think you said cubicles.
Yeah, have, I'm a fan of kind of the startup situation where everybody sits in an open seating with no dividers and things like that.
I hate that.
But that's not what we have. We have cubicle, and it depends on what kind of, if you need to concentrate if you're certain type of things, and I'm sure that 3D is like that, where you really need to concentrate and have your own space. But
I think videos like that.
Yeah, our video guy has his own space in the back, and where there's less light, and he's kind of isolated, and but mine is like a regular sort of, we have a department, a main department door, and there's windows out into the rest of the company, and then everybody has a cubicle, and then we have kind of an office in the back that we turn into sort of a conference war room sort of situation. But everybody can kind of talk over their cubicles to each other, and it's relatively open. It's just it's definitely the cubicle thing. I don't know to reference the email. I think that if somebody wants a job, they kind of need to. I mean, they kind of need to like do it your way. I mean, it has to be a right fit. I mean, like going back to the negatives and stuff. If you have a bunch of and creatives are the worst at this, and agencies, like that's why people bounce around to different agencies and stuff, because their personalities are just really, they're really fun, but they're really, in a lot of ways terrible to work with. And so you gotta find the people and hire the people for the job that can fit into what you need. First of all, don't let people walk all over you. You make the rules. You're writing the paycheck, and so if they kind of have to. You don't want somebody that doesn't want to be there.
There's really three types of spaces. You got where you have your own office, you got your cubicle, and then you got the open space. Now, I see the advantages to all of them except cubicles. I've never worked in a cubicle, and I don't think I'd be able to.
I don't mind the cubicle.
You don't
Cubicles, mind it? I don't mind it. I like it more than I do the open space. The open space, everyone can see what you're doing at all times.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The cubicles, people can only kind of see when you're surfing Reddit, My favorite, though, by far has been my very own office with a door.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you can't ask for that at every job.
I have my own door, but I keep my door open unless I'm on like some annoying conference call. So I keep it sort of open to everyone.
And Matt and I did that too when because we had pretty large offices across from each other, and I think even owning a business now, I feel like people who can get the job done, if they're taking breaks, if they're surfing Reddit, whatever it is, as long as they're getting done what they need to get done, I'm fine with that. Because I felt like I wasn't as I don't know. I felt like I wasn't as productive in the times that I worked in more of an open environment, because I was so worried that someone was always looking over my shoulder the minute that I rendered something out and went and surfed Reddit, that I was like, I don't know. I never had that breather time. Whereas when I was working in an office and I knew nobody could see my screen, I could stop, I would surf Reddit, I would watch a 5 or 10 minute video, and I would go back to what I'm doing, and then I wouldn't feel burnt out, and then I would get stuff done faster.
Oh yeah.
But the upside of having the open space is that you can all talk to each other. I mean, at the place I used to work at, we'd have these, we had 10 people, and we'd all be having this giant group conversation while we were working, and that was fun. But you could also put on some headphones and jam out your music, whereas when you're working in an office environment, you maybe can't do that because you might get paged or get a telephone call and you won't hear it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good point about the Facebook and letting people have some freedom to do that. I definitely feel that way about my my team. I think that the nature of jobs and jobs today, especially when you're using like creative software and stuff, is that everybody is multitasking, and the speed of computers and the speed of render and all that stuff is so advanced now that you can get a lot more done in a day than you used to be able to.
Yeah.
And I
used to be one computer, now we're working on several all at once.
And I think that creates like a migraine burnout situation for people that are too focused on working on the same thing all day. You have to take those little breaks. And I would say probably the executive, the top executive part of my company probably wouldn't understand or wouldn't agree with me. But I think it's within my department, I do think it's important to allow people to sort of blow off some steam and jump on Facebook and look at some videos and like you said, like surf around on Reddit. I know I do that. I'll work on a spreadsheet for like 30 minutes and I'm like, oh man, my head's going to explode. I've got to do something else for a second. I know it's important. I've got to get it done, but I just can't I'm going to make mistakes. I can't just keep doing that for an extended period of time. So,
I think a lot of, I don't know, some creative companies, I know that they just kind of expect that from their employees, and I think if they don't, they're just a little bit behind the times. I mean, like, honestly, it used to be that I would assume back in the day, you go to the water cooler, you hang out at the water cooler and you chat for a few minutes.
Smoke a cigarette.
Smoke a cigarette, break up your day. Now it's you surf Facebook, surf on Reddit for a few minutes, read an article, and then get back to work.
And the other,
I think I found that, like, when I wasn't busy at my open environment, I've kind of found it at the past 2 jobs. If I'm not busy, if I don't have anything going on and I'm just surfing Reddit, like, normally you would think that the boss would care. Like, what are you doing? You should be doing something. But, like, they know that there's nothing really going on,
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense at
The
all.
other thing, though, is that there's a time shift thing that goes on too, where they should be okay with that, because I guarantee you that if they call you after 5 p.m., they're probably going to want you to answer. And you're checking your emails at home. You're you're doing a phone call, or you're working on something at home one night in between doing Facebook, or whatever. And there's a shift where you're balancing it out. So
yeah, I was gonna say something else. I don't remember what it was now.
What else about
here's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, you have to be smart about it too. Like, if you're taking lots of breaks and you're missing deadlines and stuff, yeah, they're gonna start saying something.
Oh, of course.
But, if you're taking a break here and there, 15 minutes, read an article, surf Reddit, surf the Cinema 4D subreddit and look all through it and all the people and say what up to Sage of Shadow, then, but you're still hitting all your deadlines and being fine and all your stuff is organized, they're not going to care.
Yeah. Anything else from a management perspective you want to hit? Is there, anything about, before the show, we kind of talked about a couple things like, the web and websites and that. I don't know if you want to get in that or not, about websites being simplistic and that kind of thing, or.
Yeah, we could talk a little bit about that. One thing that I think, companies that have been around for a long time are they need to evolve a little bit in their online presence. I mean, we don't sell directly to consumers, but we have a consumer brand that we've grown and we're developing, and we advertise to consumers, but they can't buy our products on their website. They can find a dealer to go buy the products. One of the things is that you don't need every single thing on your website. You don't need every single thing about your company, all of your PR stuff, all of your products, every dimension and everything on your website. That stuff needs to be on the websites where people can buy it and where people can go and look at the product and buy it. I think a lot of companies overdo it with the information that they put on their websites. I think now it's more about sort of being more simplified, like having kind of a blog style website with not a lot of options that give consumers a good idea, or customers a good idea of what your brand is about and who you are. That looks good, that isn't a big mess of everything.
3 or 4 menu tabs. Contact,
exactly.
Twitter.
Translates well to mobile. Just the important stuff. And there's a couple of companies that actually that actually do sell online that I think do a good job with that. And you were showing me a couple, but one I really like is you guys, if you listen to other podcasts, you've probably heard advertisements for MeUndies, MeUndies.com. I really
all the time.
I hate to give them a plug, but their website is it's very simple, and it's like it's for a while there they had a really cool lifestyle thing. Now they're back to kind of their creative is a little more boring, but it's very simple. It's not they don't overwhelm you with stuff. It's interesting to look at, and they've got a lot of fun social media stuff.
Didn't you go to a MeUndies party?
Yeah. My girlfriend used to be their creative, like their creative director person in charge of all their lifestyle photography. But yeah, I think in their case they do a good job at keeping it simple, and I think that a lot of companies are that are monsters are going to have to sort of catch on to that. You don't need a videos section of your website.
Yeah, because
it's on YouTube. You don't need
Yeah.
like a photos section of your website. Like, remember when everybody had like
Yeah.
there were like these like cliche like sort of headers like for your website, like photos.
Yeah.
Like you don't need that. You don't need that. You could do like a fun little Instagram sort of feed thing, or
They'll follow that if they want to see your photos.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everything just should be in its own respective area on the internet. It doesn't all need to be on your website.
Yeah, there doesn't need to be like 8 million drill down menus of all these sub things you could do, because all they're going to do is look for the contact info,
Yeah.
call you up and say, hey, can you do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's everything is simple in that aspect. And what was I going to say? Crap.
Oh no.
I forgot. But the disruptive disruptive businesses, disruptive ventures that are going on right now. Let's say like MeUndies, Casper,
Yeah. Dollar Shave,
Nature Box.
Dollar Shave Club.
Dollar Shave Club. What's some
Nature
of the other
Box.
ones? Yeah, Nature Box, and what's the glasses one? Warby Parker.
Oh yeah.
All that kind of stuff, like
MailChimp.
Mail Kimp.
And Squarespace too, dude.
Yeah,
I mean, we talk about Squarespace. We like it,
we
but
love it.
I do love Squarespace. Yeah.
But it's all those. It seems like they came up with a way of doing things that was way more simplistic than it was before, and their website's clean and simple to use. It's an easy idea, but they're doing it in a way that just takes the crazy town out of it. My truck. I bought my truck, and they do the same kind of thing. Now they're not as big on the web, but it was the same kind of thing. It was like, we make this so simple that you don't want to shoot yourself. And that's really, it's making people successful right now. But the way, again, it comes back to the website on most of these is there's not a lot of fluff. It's just like, make it simple. Ain't nobody got time for that type situation where, you want to get in, get out. You'll follow them if you want to. You'll Facebook them, Instagram them if you want to.
You can search the news stuff about them. You can qualify them through Google and through other routes.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to all be on the website.
Yeah. So, hey, let's get to some quick C4D Octane updates and some links, and we'll do our social, and we're going to get out of here. Unless you got anything else you want to talk about. So, and Mike is, I don't know if we said this, Mike's actually in studio today with me.
I'm here.
Like physically, which is different. Usually we use Skype. Real quick, I wanted to turn to C4D and Octane. Mike, I know you've messed around with Cinema 4D probably a little before, just for fun. Just opened it maybe and whatever. But
I took some lessons from Dave over iChat.
You built a snowman with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, did some logos and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen. Oh, that's right, because we did some. We did some cool graphics like make some noise and that kind of stuff, like for audience members.
That's old school stuff. Yeah. I mean, in the semi recently, we did some logo stuff on.
Yeah, and we'll get into some tech stuff here. I don't know if you've probably heard us ranting about Octane, and I think I might have showed you like how it's kind of real time and you can see all of that. But here's some things that I came across this week. Number one, turning off generators does not affect poly count. I didn't hit this last week, did I, Matt?
I think you might
have. I
have.
don't know. Maybe did I already talk about this?
You talked to me about this. I don't know if you talked about it on the show. Okay. But go ahead and say it again.
All right.
Why not?
We had talked about the possibility of maybe turning off, render in viewport and whatever would still affect poly count or affect something about Octane. Mm-hmm. And what I did figure out is that if you have a really heavy project in your viewport and you turn everything off in your viewport for show and render, show and editor, your your viewport is still going to be laggy. And if you put it on a layer and you turn off generators, then your viewport will be better and like butter. I might have talked about that last week. I can't remember. I came up across the range mapper spline adjustment this week, which is interesting. Something I never had to deal with. But I was range mapping something, and in so range mapping it, when you would put a slider at like 25%, 50%, 75%, they wouldn't correspond exactly because there was some sort of exponential fall off that was going on. So it's interesting that there is a spline adjustment so that you can do that. I had to do that because I was working on the new Brograph plugin this week, and I came across that. So,
oh yeah,
and it's really, really shaping up right now, getting real close. I haven't talked about it in a while, but
because we haven't had a chance to work on
it. Something that you and I maybe we'll touch on this next week is in Octane 3. I'm having problems with multi-shader.
Yeah, here's the thing, like. I don't know if you're necessarily having problems with it or you're just now noticing it. Like, how often do you use multi-shader?
Never.
Exactly. See, I've worked with multi-shader enough to where I know that Octane itself is kind of finicky with it. So is it showing it where it's showing you just one tile the entire time?
No, it's just not working. And I'll try and do a color. Here's an example. I'll try and put a color in. And I'll make it blue. And then I'll try and do another color, and I'll make it yellow. And when I come back, the blue is also yellow. The original blue is also now yellow. It's like they're all one RGB Octane texture.
We'll have to look at it.
We'll have to look at
it. Yeah, because it works. I'm pretty sure it works. It just doesn't. It's almost like you have to resend it every time if you want to see it.
We'll have to look because I really need that. But I don't know.
You could be right. It could be version 3 is actually different, but it's finicky in version 2 as well.
I really need that this week. I might hit you up in the morning when I start working on this project.
Okay, I'm working at another place at 10 tomorrow morning. So
we're like figuring out our schedule on the air. It's great. Okay, so version 3 alpha 6 of the Cinema 4D Octane plugin. Beta for Octane 3 is out. There's some changes, new implement of gradient texture, blah, 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 all this kind of small stuff. The one thing that
they just updated to version 2.25, right? R3 or something? Like they updated the version 2 to a new version.
Right. So all the revisions of 2.25 are now in there as well. So, it's weird because they're in this kind of, in between phase. Yeah. So they're trying to put the other fixes in with the new alpha. But there's improved TFD object tag functionality There's improvements on the Turbulence FD integration. With the object tag usage. We were talking about how, like, I tried it and I was having issues with it being crashy, and you had told me it actually said in the notes that it was kind of crashy. Some additions, it says volume object to generate voxels with some procedural textures like noise. That's cool because you can generate, like, I don't know, a box of smoke and just put a noise on it, and all of a sudden you have kind of those voxels generated for just random smoke noise.
Cool.
I mean, I haven't played with it. I'm just reading what it says. So environment fog under medium section of daylight and environment tags. And texture baking camera. Now here's the thing. Texture baking camera is something that's in Octane 3. They've shown it on the...
What does that mean?
Okay. Well, okay, so this is in the regular renderer itself. Texture baking camera is like if you want to create something for VR and you want to do like your spherical or cubic, your spherical or your cubic stereo mapping for doing VR. If you're doing objects and stuff like that, or if you are exporting, let's say, I don't know, OBJs or FBXs to bring it on Unreal Engine, you can actually bake these images out to where it looks like Octane, but you're really baking out these images. It has a camera that will do texture baking into it with that. So I mean, it's something you could do in the standard renderer, but this is something you can do here now, and now it's integrated into the Cinema 4D version of the plugin, where if you want to create some sort of VR environment, you can make it look pretty real before you even do anything. And I mean, Unreal Engine is freaking awesome anyway in itself. And so I've seen some examples of this, of people doing this, and I wanted to try it, but I had read in the previous alpha versions that camera baking thing was not in Cinema yet, so it'll be fun to try. Man, I mean, you imagine you're making some sort of interactive VR, maybe like interactive VR movie or something like that, where you're not just baking out a render in stereo, you're baking out an entire thing, so you can maybe use an Xbox controller and move around on the fly in Unreal, but you want it to have kind of a bit of realism and not just like a video game feel. You can bake out those textures, bring it in, you can add your interactive goodness to it, and it will look really pretty. So some links this week. We've got this was going around where you can this is, I guess, a proof of concept. There's no code or anything out for it yet from what I could find, but it's a system that will edit videos on the fly and use facial tracking to make it look like someone on YouTube or something is saying something that they're not. So
sweet.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I mean, it's very realistic and scary looking, because if you think about 20 years from now, when every video on the internet is fake, it's the president saying, that he's a racist.
I did 9/11.
Yeah. That kind of thing. That's, man, you're not going to know what to believe here pretty soon, but I guess it's already like that. But there's an article in TechCrunch about this technology, and it's just like, what we're seeing right now with some of those facial tracking apps, where that's going to go within a couple years is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, totally.
You mean like better face swap on Snapchat?
Yeah, or the Masquerade app and all those different, pretty soon, I mean, you want to chat with a woman online, it's really like some dude in his basement getting paid 10 cents a minute to collect email addresses from unsuspecting.
That's a good idea.
We should do that.
Man.
You don't have a basement, though.
I don't have a basement. Dang it.
I have an attic.
So NVIDIA came out with their new 6000, what do you call it, the K6000?
Yeah, something like that.
with 24 gig of video RAM.
Ridiculous.
It's $5,000. It has maybe less than 1,000 more CUDA cores than a 980 Ti, which I know it's not all just about CUDA cores. Don't email me.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're doing Octane, I don't know if you need a $5,000 card for that or not. But, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't, I don't see it. I mean, viewport is another thing, but and then I just ran across this because I thought I'd talk about it because I thought it was interesting. There's a site called rawshorts.com, and it's like, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, just raw shorts. It sounds like the Tobias Funke.
Oh, there's dozens of them.
Never nude.
Raw Shorts is a thing. It's one of those sites where they're like, do you like explainer videos? Because we can create explainer video. That's what it's called now. These little 2D motion graphic things are explainer videos. And they claim that you can build your own thing. I think I talked about something similar.
Video
before.
is hard. Yeah. Raw Shorts is easy.
But the thing about it is I was just interested. I was trying to look and see on the site if they built their video about their site using their own software or not. Mm-hmm. Because really that would be the test, right? I couldn't tell.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny because the voice that I was just doing is the guy of the voiceover that they're using.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to look that up. So, I mean, I hate that people are being kind of tricked into using these sites because it's not ever going to be as good as something custom. I mean, maybe it will work for some people, but you know,
it's clip art. It's video clip art.
It's video clip art. And that's what you're going to get. And people are going to start recognizing,
Shutterstock teapot. Yeah. Yeah.
Or, you know, like 10, 15, 20 different sites all have the same little character in them. It's like, oh, you all use the same, you know, cheap little program. And
I had done one of these little 2D animation ones for a client, and a client was sending me their illustrations, and I was like, okay, this is really good. These are good illustrations. Then I start seeing the same character everywhere else, and I'm like, oh, I look him up. Sure enough, he's just a stock Illustrator element on iStock.
Yeah.
So,
hockey projection map. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these that have been going around that say, you know, either hockey or basketball projection mapping on the courts or the field or whatever sport it is. But this was a really well done hockey projection map where they actually had one of the players interacting with,
and it looked like he was like on a thing of ice, right?
Yeah,
or like floating in water,
floating on an iceberg, and he's using his hockey stick to, like, you know, push his way down the water, and then a shark comes out and he's hiding behind stuff, and it was good. So that's the last link. And then in social, we got Blair Walker actually just tweeted at us. He said, you know, have you tried Rebus Render Farm? Highly recommend. But then again, he listened to the rest of the episode, and I guess you had mentioned you had.
Yeah.
But he said he's found it good for animation renders with standard render. So
Rebus Farm. I just want to make sure that's not the horse one. Yeah, I've used this one. I used this for 3ds Max, and it wasn't bad. Like, it was a whole lot less hassle to use it, and it was about the same price. But it still takes, like, here's the thing, like, the farms they still take a while.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I can render it out in 2 hours on my home computer versus sending it to one of these farms and it renders out in 2 hours.
Or it renders out in an hour, but there's an hour wait in the queue.
Right, exactly. So, I don't know.
And Vera Extreme Core said hi again.
Hi.
He was leaving lots of comments on one of our YouTube videos.
Yes, he was. I like it because you can tell when where in the episode he is.
Oh, right.
Where in the thing, because he'll leave you'll get comments throughout. It's pretty funny.
But I just took a couple comments from there, which is he agrees with Sage on the idea of being creative over the more technical aspect because we were talking about that balance. I can easily come up with tons of cool looking ideas, but things like Espresso or AE kind of go over my head a bit. I've been searching and have asked in C4D subreddit if there's some kind of book that explained Espresso. I don't know of a definitive Espresso resource. Do you?
I don't know. Like I learned Espresso from you. I learned it by watching you. Honestly. And opening up your projects, and seeing how you did stuff.
Yeah, again, it comes back to that same thing. Maybe opening up projects that exist, sample files, learning how that works, doing some simple Espresso, and then maybe adding one thing and adding another thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then regarding Octane, I guess probably me, I said, or maybe you said it's so cheap already, just buy it. He said, I'm not saying it's super expensive, but and I can't save up for it, but $330, $655 US for just the standalone render isn't exactly a no-brainer. There are at least 2 3D apps I use that have Octane as a plugin. So while it would be cheaper for the standalone outright, then you've got to buy the additional plugins. And I think I wrote back. I said, well, I mean, I get that, but it's still cheaper than some of the alternatives.
Yeah.
And Casey from Hawaii sent the picture wearing the Brograph t-shirt on Diamond Head on Oahu, overlooking Honolulu and Waikiki. And ripped the sleeves off and just was like representing Brograph. And
nice.
Somebody.
So those people who have bought Brograph shirts, send us a tweet with you wearing it. We'll throw it up on our Twitter.
Yeah,
or
for
Facebook.
Real. And wear it to NAB. We'll buy you a drink.
Yeah.
And I had a question about not being able to see the frequency. This is on one of our tutorials. Not being able to see the frequency from a sound wave and when inputted, and it was an MP3. And so I can't remember at this point, but will MP3s come in to Cinema through the sound deal without having some sort of issues?
I don't normally import sound into my stuff. I do it all through After Effects.
See, that would be my one question, because sometimes MP3s don't play well with certain programs because they are a compressed format. I think something that's uncompressed is going to be your best bet.
Yeah.
And then Matt Gerard also figured out his, remember we were talking about the mixed video card thing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said, figured it out. The system will choose the card you have. By what the monitors are plugged into as the primary card.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of, we were talking about Illustrator and Element won't recognize. It's because on boot up, the monitors aren't plugged into that card. And so that's what it was. So he said not...
He said, not sure what will happen if I plug one monitor into each card. Not sure if I'm willing to tempt fate that much. No, you could do it.
No, that'll be fine. That's not going to screw anything up.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you wanted to power it one way, I think like if you say you plugged in both your monitors into the NVIDIA card, or well, maybe the other one wouldn't power up if you didn't do it, but one into each card, and you got the NVIDIA to come up, then you could move your monitors around to whichever card you want after it booted, but that's a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think we're done.
Oh, we got 2 new reviews on iTunes.
Yeah, why don't you read them?
Sure. Okay, so the first one says, a must listen. Thank you very much. This is from New Granafa, I believe. This 40-year-old AE newbie is loving this podcast. Great guys, inspiring info and killer odd tangents. Yes, that made me laugh. And then this one was my favorite. Great show? ? Was the title of it. Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
Another 5 stars. We're on a streak. Nobody mess it up.
Oh, don't. No,
5
now that you've
stars.
said that, dude, you've totally ruined it.
Well,
So, thank you guys for everyone who has already reviewed. If you haven't, just shoot us up on iTunes. Just give us a review. It really helps us get our numbers up there and get our, trending stuff, I guess.
yeah, I don't know how they don't reveal their magic on how all that crap works, but
Yeah, I don't know.
But we're really getting excited about NAB because it's coming up. We're gonna do a podcast from NAB. That should be fun. I don't know. I mean, depending on how the week goes, maybe we'll get some special guests, do some video stuff. So let us know if you're going to be there because we really want to meet up with you. You can also subscribe to us if you're listening just to the audio or you're listening on the YouTube version of the podcast, which we have a lot of. Even if you're not going to listen to it on audio, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on some sort of pod catching device just to help get our ratings up in those areas, which that would be super appreciated. And you can tell your friends to tell your peers who might be in the same industry about us. And it seems like a lot of people are enjoying the show. And so let your friends know.
Yeah. Or if you got any ideas for topics, shoot us an email at brograph@brograph.com.
And like we were talking about earlier, the t-shirt, you can say you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. No Brograph, no Mograph t-shirt. It's up on the site. It's also on Amazon if you search on Amazon for Brograph. And we make money from you buying that shirt, and that helps us do more cool things on Brograph.com. And if you'd like to take our relationship to the next level, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube and Brograph.com.
Yep. All right.
And we covered it, I think. Mike?
I think so.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being
This
on.
is cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
I've never really talked about my job like that, so hopefully someone got something out of it. I'm not really an expert.
We have all the time.
I think that's what people really like about this show right now is the feedback that we've been getting is that there aren't a lot of people that are talking about this real talk that we're talking about, in the industry and business and dealing with certain things that we all deal with every day, but maybe don't have anyone else to talk about it to. Our spouses and significant others and such don't necessarily want to talk about geeky, businessy stuff sometimes. So
My wife will still listen to the podcast even though she doesn't understand what we're talking about.
Nice.
That's really nice.
Well,
Yes, it is. She's great.
maybe by osmosis it'll come in, and one day you'll be working on an Octane project, and she'll be like, "Oh, I got this."
One can only hope.
Yeah, there we go. Free labor for our company.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon, Mike. And if you have any other similar questions or follow-up questions, please email us. And until next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
Have a good one.
Later, bros.
It's pretty good, I guess. Brograph.com, an online resource for learning critical components of Cinema 4D and After Effects, specifically catered to help you prevail as a motion graphic designer.
What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph motion graphics tutorial.
We give you professional time-saving tips, shortcuts, and lessons that help give you an edge over your fellow designners. Not only this, but our new Brograph Talks help you in your file management, hardware configuration, and client relations.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Join us for live sessions, check out our crazy Cinema 4D experiments, or just watch our Fun with Brograph series, where we show you practical applications for techniques learned in previous tutorials. Do this from the beginning, and your client is going to respect that, and they're going to respect you, and they're going to respect your time. Subscribe today and get automatic updates on the latest tutorials, tricks, tips, and inspiration brought to you by industry professionals Dave Koss and Matt Milstead, all with a slight dash of dry humor peppered in. Real nice banana.
Brograph.com, your source for tutorials that will help you thrive in the motion graphics industry. Don't just play around with Cinema 4D and After Effects, master it. and make money by becoming indispensable at your workplace.
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here. Subscribe now to Brograph Tutorials. It's pretty good, I guess.